Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Laced Out podcast, our NFL podcast. Oh, the season's getting on a bit, and it's starting to shape up. I think it's starting to look like we might get a bit of an idea of what the end of the season's going to look like, and that might hint towards what our Super Bowl might look like. Join myself and Paul whilst we discuss a few of those things. But before that, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously the big one is share the podcast around. Obviously they are all important, but if you can, share it around. If you like the NFL and you know someone who likes the NFL, maybe slide this over their way. Say, hey, check this out. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces out.
Welcome on in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, one and all. Thank you for joining us here on YouTube, or indeed, if you're just listening to the dulcet tones of both myself and the other smiling co-host that is joining us today. He is the leader of the CookieCast podcast network, Mr. Andrew Cook. How are you this week, sir?
I mean, I did get a guess. I promised there was a guess. Swear to the god of guests, I did get a guess. I sacrificed the significant number of mythical creatures to get a guess. However, due to unforeseen circumstances, our guest was unable to attend. So I suppose double apologies on that one. I did try and rally a backup guess. Unfortunately, they could only just muster some picks at the last moment. So yes, no guest, unfortunately, on that one. Other than that, fine and dandy. How are you, sir?
I'm very well. Obviously, last week in the NFL was the last week of regular fantasy season play. So we start obviously the fantasy NFL playoffs from this week, and I was one of the fortunate four in our league to make it into the post-season dance, shall we say? So yes, now, I am looking forward to that.
Obviously, as a podcast, as a 7-season podcast or whatever it is now, I think it's 7 seasons. We did at one point in time take the option to move away from discussing fantasy. Obviously, fantasy is very much a personal thing, whereas we had to talk about an actual sport and a league. And the only way we really use the fantasy now is to pick our guests week in, week out. So we have shied away from it. I do want to just highlight. I don't know if you looked any further down from your lofty heights in the league, but up until last week, it wasn't all sewn up. And in a Rain Man-esque kind of way, I was looking at it, I was like, if I win this week, and the two other people in the same position as me lose this week, and bearing in mind who I'm playing, and if I win, that means that they've lost and they're currently in the playoffs. I could go to the playoffs. So I was like, oh my God, this is a magical moment. This is a possible, almost unheard of point in time where this mythical thing could happen. And then I looked at the two other people in the same position, who their opponents were, and went, motherfucker. As one was a walk-off team, so it's not like they were losing with all those injured players in their lineup. And we won't comment on who the other opponent was. And that was all a waste of time because I I also lost. So it doesn't actually matter. But I like to think in an alternate universe, somewhere out there, and amongst the billions of alternate universes, I am in the playoffs right now, and that warms me somewhat. But I'm not in the playoffs in this universe, and that's what really matters. So whatever. Moving on swiftly before I cry.
Indeed. So, week 14 is what we're here to talk about. So, week 14 brought with it 13 games, 6 teams on the bye. These were the last 6 teams to the bye. So, the Ravens, the Broncos, the Texans, the Colts, the Patriots, and the Commanders were not played. So, like I said, that left us with 13 games. Myself, Mr. Cook, and last week's guest, my good lady wife, Mrs. Amy Williams, made the selections with 7 of 13 selections correct. It was last week's guest, Mrs. Amy Williams. She was let down by the Packers losing at the Lions, the Panthers losing at the Eagles, the Browns losing at the Steelers, the Raiders losing at the Buccaneers, the Titans losing at home to the Jags, and the Bears losing at the San Francisco 49ers. 7 out of 13 correct picks, which leaves the point to be decided between myself and Mr. Cook. Now, we only had 1 game difference in the fact, and it was the Seahawks-Cardinals game. So, who would come out on top in that particular fixture? So, we both got the Bills-Rams game wrong, as we went with the Bills. And we both got the Titans-Jags game wrong, as we went with the Titans. However, only I went wrong with the Cardinals in the Seahawks game. So winning the week with 11 of 13 selections correct, it is Mr. Andrew Cook, which moves him to 5.5 points for the season. I still maintain the lead with 7.5 points for the season. The guest does have that 1 point that Tony got for the guest a number of weeks back. So Andy obviously still has that asterisk next to his name because of his perfect week. Yes, closing the gap. That leaves us with the side bet to go through. Now, we each picked 4 games, as we always do with the side bet. Andy's first pick, the Philadelphia Eagles to beat the Carolina Panthers, correct. The Kansas City Chiefs to beat the Los Angeles Chargers, correct. The Pittsburgh Steelers to beat the Cleveland Browns, also correct. Was let down by the Bills not beating the Rams, however. So just the 3 points for Mr. Cook. Moves him to 8 for the season. I had the Buccaneers to beat the Raiders, that's 1. The Vikings to beat the Falcons, that's 2. The Bengals to beat the Cowboys, that's 3. And I also fell at the final hurdle with the Titans not beating the Jags to give me also 3 points and leave me on 41. So there's still the 3-point gap between myself and Mr. Cook in the side bet. Still all to play for in the final 4 weeks of the regular season.
Oh, delightful.
That's all of our admin. But I believe it's time to go through the admin that the league provides in the way of some delicious, tasty Week 14 stats.
Absolutely. So, as is the way, our delightful stats mistress took herself over to the internet. I say the internet, it was just one place. It was USA Today. Said to her friend Nate Davis, give us the finest stats. And she took all 32 stats, ran them through the algorithm, put them through the filter, and provided us with 15 of, let's face it, the cream of the stats. I have then taken on the task of dividing them between himself and Paul, and I now bring you the Week 14 stats. Big thanks to the stats mistress, and credit goes to Nate Davis of USA Today. Number 1, How many touchdown passes has Falcons quarterback Kirk Cousins thrown since week 9? Oh, it's that many, isn't it? It's absolutely 0 over that same stretch. He has 8 interceptions, including 2 more on Sunday's 42-21 loss against his former team, the Minnesota Vikings. Honestly, every time a Vikings player scored and they zoomed in, it was almost aggressive to some where they were zooming in on the Vikings player who were just elated. And it felt somewhat a little more than just I scored a touchdown. If I could have chopped and changed it, I was going to donate that stat to you because I know that you're such a huge Kirk Cousins fan. But yes, we have been batting round some amazing Kirk Cousins stats for the season. That was actually one of them. Amazing. Second stat for me is, however, by stark comparison, how many combined sacks and turnovers occurred between the Los Angeles Rams, 44-42 upset of the Buffalo Bills on Sunday? Also 0. Me and the stats mistress were watching back through that game because we were just like, WTF. And there was a point where the Bills put something like 21 unanswered points on the box. It was like, the fuck? And lost in that game. Yeah, insane. Number 3, the Rams are now in second place in the NFC West after their miraculous effort to upend the Bills. Though LA is 1 game behind the surging Seattle Seahawks, if the Rams can win out, they'd win the division by completing a season sweep of Seattle in week 18. Number 4, the Vikings are also second place, but in the NFC North, despite their remarkable 11-2 record, which leaves them 1 game behind the conference-leading Detroit Lions, who beat the Vikes in week 7. The rivals meet again in Motown in the regular season final. Sticking with Detroit wide receiver Tim Patrick caught a pair of touchdowns in Thursday night's win over the Green Bay Packers, one that secured a playoff spot for Detroit. It marked the first time in nearly 3 years that Patrick had reached the end zone, missing the entire 22 and 23 seasons as a member of the Broncos with injuries. 6, 3 teams were mathematically eliminated from postseason contention Sunday. The New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, and Cleveland Browns all seeing their already remote chances extinguished. And 7, and my final, the Jets have now missed the playoffs in 14 consecutive seasons, extending what is currently the league's longest drought. I saw a post today, I don't know if you saw it, a little funny one. It was, if Disneyland is the happiest place on earth, is this the saddest place on earth? And it was a picture of MetLife Stadium. It did have like the Jets at one end and the Giants at the other end. It's like, fuck, bro.
Just spectacular how one city can be so inept at one sport.
Over to you.
I will continue the stats. So the team with the second longest postseason absence is the Denver Broncos. They last appeared when Peyton Manning and co. won Super Bowl 50, but they do have a 77% chance to qualify this season as per NFL.com. Vikings quarterback Sam Darnold threw 5 touchdown passes, the most in a game during his 7-year career, in the victory over Atlanta. Darnold's 347 passing yards on Sunday were also the most he's ever posted in an NFL game, and his 157.9 passer rating was also a personal best. Good thing the Jets got rid of him in order to pivot to Zach Wilson and later Aaron Rodgers. Quite funny, obviously, the moment of the fact that people are now talking that in the off season the Jets probably should move to bring in a new quarterback, maybe named Sam Darnold.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if they were like, oh, let's get Sam Darnold back, bring him home to us. They bring him back, and he just goes from the highs of being one of the best in the league at this point in time with the Vikings to going back to what it was like with the Jets. Because let's face it, I think there's something wrong, deeply wrong at the Jets.
Very concerning. With 4 games still to play, Philadelphia Eagles running back Saquon Barkley has already broken the 91-year-old franchise single-season rushing record. He's 124 yards on the ground on Sunday, giving a league best 1,623. Barkley is the first player in a decade to exceed 1,600 rushing yards through 13 games in a season. So obviously he's got 4 games left. Needs an average of what's that, about 91-ish, something like that.
Yeah.
91, 92, to get him to 2,000 yards for the season. At this point, you'd be very surprised if he doesn't get there. So, watch his space.
Yeah.
The Steelers' Chris Boswell drilled 2 more field goals in a 27-14 triumph over the Browns, tying his single-season team standard with 36 3-pointers this season. It's not all doom and gloom for Aaron Rodgers, as he cracked 300 passing yards on Sunday, the first time he'd done that in the past 3 seasons. But it wasn't sufficient for the New York Jets to end their losing skid, the Miami Dolphins prevailing 32-26 in overtime. The Jets haven't won in South Florida in 9 years. San Francisco 49ers rookie running back Isaac Guerrero received his first NFL start Sunday and responded with 128 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns. However, as he is playing for the San Francisco 49ers, of course, he suffered a foot injury late in the 38-13 victory over the Chicago Bears. It's worth wondering if the Niners will have to field their 5th string tailback in Week 15. I just, honestly, watching it, the second that you saw that he was down as like questionable to return, so I was like, of course he is. He plays for what can only be described at this point as a cursed franchise, in that they cannot keep players fit and healthy. I don't know if it's something where they're just pushing them too hard in training, or something's wrong with the diets and stuff like that, or the physio's just not up to snuff. Something needs to change in that organisation. It's very, very strange. And my final stat, and not just mine, our final stat of the week: Los Angeles Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert now has 335 consecutive pass attempts without an interception, the 5th longest such run in league history. He joined Tom Brady from 2010 as the only players to play 11 straight interceptionless games in the same season, with a minimum of 15 passes in each. Sadly, that didn't help the Bolts prevent the Kansas City Chiefs winning the AFC West for the 9th straight season. Chiefs, obviously, will be in the postseason. Will the AFC Championship game go through Kansas City yet again? We wait to see. That brings us to the end of Week 14. That allows us to now look forward to Week 15 that is gallivanting over the horizon at an alarming rate of knots. So, as we said last week, all of the byes are now out of the way. All 32 teams have had their week off. That means for the next 4 weeks, a full slate of 16 games across the board. Myself and Mr. Cook have made our picks for those said 16 games, and in the position of the guest this week, it is the aforementioned stats mistress herself, Leanne Davey. So she has also provided her 16 picks, and they are as follows. We start with the Thursday night football, which sees the resurgent Los Angeles Rams taking on the banged up San Francisco 49ers in Santa Clara. Myself and Mr. Cook have gone with the hot hand Rams, whereas the stats mistress is fully backing the 49ers. Next up, we move to Sunday. We see the Dallas Cowboys travelling to Carolina to take on the Panthers. Mr. Cook and Leanne have backing the Dallas Cowboys. However, I'm not so sure. So I've gone with the Carolina Panthers with home field advantage and their own actual starting quarterback to get their business done against the Dallas Cowboys. Chiefs Browns. We've all picked the Chiefs. There's no shenanigans going on there. Although we did discuss it earlier in the season. And I believe Mr. Cook was saying that the Chiefs will lose one game.
What I was going to say was my belief is that every season, every team should have the opportunity to not play a game. They should look at a game and go, can we all agree that we can pretty much predict the outcome of this? So that the away team doesn't have to travel that week, we just shake hands and agree the outcome on this one. Because, come on.
Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. Myself and the stats mistress have taken the Texans on this one. Andy is in for the Dolphins.
So,
next up,
there are a series of games this week that I have highlighted as this is the smart pick. This is what the stats say. This is what I imagine 90% of people are going to go with. But I think X, and that is one of the games. On paper, the Texans are going to win that game. They are the favorite in that game. They're going to win it. Job done. Dolphins have got a difficult situation, whereas they haven't delivered the way they did last season, and we're getting right up to the back end of the season in that sense of they're either going to be the Dolphins or they're going to be the Dolphins. So games like this, they could turn it up a notch or two, secure themselves a win, make a real difference to what the pitch looks like for the season. Or I'm wrong and they lose.
So we move to the next game, which sees the already eliminated from the postseason New York Jets traveling to the also already eliminated postseason contending Jacksonville Jaguars. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Aaron Rodgers for the rest of this season. Hence why I have picked the Jacksonville Jaguars to get the win. Andy and Lee are not convinced. They've gone with the Jets. Another one of those 50-50 games for me, to be honest with you. The next set of games are a bit of a consensus across the board. We've all taken the Commanders at the Saints, the Ravens at the Giants, the Bengals at the Titans, and the Cardinals at home to the New England Patriots. We've also all taken the Denver Broncos at home to the Indianapolis Colts. The next game, however, arguably game of the season, potentially a Super Bowl preview. It's the Buffalo Bills at the Detroit Lions.
I will be
now,
very
to say that the
interested
Lions
to see
are
the way you've gone on this.
11-1, 12-1.
They are 12-1. They are 12-1, and the Bills are 10-3.
To say that the Lions are 12-1, only one of the three of us has picked the Lions to get the win here, which I think is slightly odd. But the two that haven't gone with the Lions is myself and Mr. Cook. So we've both taken the Bills on this one.
So this is another one of the games where I've looked at this and gone, okay, hear me out. I think the Lions are potentially going to be one of the two teams in the Super Bowl. I think that is basically cemented in a lot of ways through their season at this point. So I'm like, okay, I'm happy to say that. I've been saying it for a while, and it feels good. It feels good, and I honestly can't wait. I'm super excited for it. I do, however, think they have a loss in their future. If they're going to lose another game before the end of the season, it is absolutely possibly going to be this game. On the other side of the ball is the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills have come up against, obviously, three teams they couldn't best. How do I say this politely? One of those three teams was the Rams. The Rams looked amazing in that game. They looked like a dominant force. They haven't exactly looked like that before that game, and I'm not sure they're going to really look like that past that game. So there's an argument to say that the Bills shouldn't have lost that game. They need to bounce back, and they need to bounce back strong. They need to cement themselves as a possible Super Bowl contender. This is the game to do it in. Go up against a 12-1 Lions, walk away with the W.
Yeah, couldn't agree more on that one. The last 5 games, we've got some consensus picks across the board. So we've all taken the Chargers at home to the Buccaneers, which I'm a little bit surprised at. The Bucs look kind of good at the moment, but the Chargers are at home. We've all taken the Eagles at home to the Steelers. Again, just a little bit surprised that no one wanted anything the Steelers. Again, contribute that the Eagles are just strong.
11-2 Eagles.
Yeah. We've all taken the
Steelers.
Yeah, it's weird that one. So I'm saying that we've all gone with the same picks. Yeah, I could see an argument to be made for either team in all of these games.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we've all taken the Packers at the Seahawks as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's a 50-50 shot.
I nearly went with the Seahawks for that one. I was like, 9-4 versus 8-5. The Seahawks haven't exactly been phoning it in. The Packers just seem to be, I would say consistent is the word I would use for the Packers. Whereas the Seahawks go into games where you're like, they've got this. Oh, they lost.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing. So I think consistency over a little bit erratic here and there, I had to pick the Packers in the end.
That Packers-Seahawks game, by the way, is Sunday night football. We're back in a position where they've left 2 games on the Monday, one of which is the Monday night football, which is the Chicago Bears at the Minnesota Vikings, and we've all taken the home team Vikings on that one. The other game being played on Monday is the one that will be shunted off to ESPN Plus or whatever it's played on in the States. I imagine this will be the lesser spotted double screen game in the UK, as Channel 5 will have the rights to the Monday Night Football, the Bears Vikings, whereas Sky will probably have the rights to the Falcons Raiders game. So if you wanted to, you could probably watch both at the same time. If you wanted to, although I don't know why anyone in their right mind would want anything to do with the Falcons or the Raiders. Myself and Mr. Cook have taken the Falcons. Leanne has taken the Raiders. I can only presume because
I tried. I tried. I was like, "Are you sure?" She was like, "Yep." I was like, "Are you sure?" She was like, "Yep." I was like, "Okay, I've got to take your first answer, so here we go." I'll put that in the.
It's truly, truly baffling. So that is all of our 16 games. All that's left for myself and Mr. Cook to do is to pick our 4 side bet selections. What I am going to suggest is that we take a small break to recompose ourselves ahead of those imperative selections. So don't you guys touch anything. We'll be right back in a momentary second. And just like that, we are indeed back on your screens and in your ears. So, 4 side bet selections per person. As it stands at the end of week 14, I have 41 points. Mr. Cook has 38 points. It could scarcely be closer. As he's behind in the overall standings, Mr. Cook will now decide whether he wants to go first or if he would like me to make my selection first.
It's one of those. I have to go first because I need to get the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Cleveland Browns off the board immediately. If nothing else, just give the Browns the chance of winning that game because we all know I might pick them. So yes, I will snaffle that one out right there and then.
In that case, as my first selection, I will take the Baltimore Ravens to beat the New York Giants. And with the second selection, I will take the Washington Commanders to beat the New Orleans Saints. Your next 2 selections, please, kind sir.
I'll take the Minnesota Vikings to beat the Chicago Bears.
Yep, that's exactly where I'd gone.
Obviously, there are a lot of games that stand out as picks, and then there are a lot of games that like I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole. I think I will have to take, and we're going in early on the very close scoring one. I think I'll take the Washington Commanders to beat.
I've already got.
Oh shit! Sorry. There you go. That's absolutely one I want to take it. Do I pony up and take the Cowboys to beat the Panthers? Oh God, there are some very close ones. Actually, no. I'll take the Arizona Cardinals to beat the New England Patriots.
So that was one of my next 2 that I was going to take if they were still on the board. However, as you've taken that, I will go for the Cincinnati Bengals to beat the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
And now we have a decision to make.
And I know exactly the decision you have to make. Can he do it? Come on, bring it home for me.
You know what? I think you're thinking I'm going to go in a different direction here. And I probably am, as I'm going to be taking the Denver Broncos to beat the Indianapolis Colts.
I like that pick. A lot of the reason I like that pick is that I know that if there's a few things in life that you will rarely do. You will rarely take the 49ers in any given situation. And you will rarely take a team that is quarterbacked by everyone's favorite quarterback. So I will take the Atlanta Falcons to beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah. 2-11.
There you have it. So, to clarify, Andy has the Kansas City Chiefs to go into Cleveland and get business done against the Browns. He has the Vikings to take care of business against the Bears at home. He has the Cardinals to beat the Patriots at home, and the Falcons to go to Sin City and best the Las Vegas Raiders. I have the Ravens coming out on top in MetLife Stadium against the Giants, the Commanders to travel to New Orleans and beat the Saints, the Bengals to go to Music City, Nashville, Tennessee, and take down the Titans, and the Broncos to stay right there in Denver and best the Indianapolis Colts. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your Week 15 predictions and side bet. Done, dusted, bowed, and stored away. So we need to discuss it next week. So, that brings us to the end of this week's podcast. Thank you, as always, to you, the listeners, joining us. Obviously, without you, there is no podcast. So thank you very much for joining us on the YouTubes or on whichever your podcast providers that you may use. If you're new around here, if this is your first time, maybe think about liking, subscribing to the channel. It's not just the NFL podcast that we have here. We have a weekly football podcast hosted by myself to bring you all of the ins, outs, ups and downs of Middlesbrough, Hull, Nottingham Forest, and sometimes just the wider football world. We have the weekly, or certainly in line with the races of the season, the Formula One podcast. That is also very, very good listening. And then the wrestling podcast that we put out in line with the monthly premium live events provided by WWE. And then, of course, the crown jewel, or the jewel in the crown, as it were, of the podcast network. It is the Darkest Timeline from Mr. Andrew Cook himself. Still no video feed on that one, just audio.
I've been toying with it recently. It is available on YouTube, but it's available as an audio, with just the logo as the video. I've recently toyed with the idea of switching to video. However, nobody wants to look at this talking absolute nonsense. Well, anyway, just audio at the moment.
There you have it. So, lots for you to be tucking into on the network. Yes, that's it for this week. Join us again next week when we'll go through Week 15's games. We'll look ahead to Week 16 games, and we'll give you some delicious, tasty stats that have happened and occurred in Week 15. Until then, thank you very much, as always, for listening. Take care of yourselves. Keep an eye out for each other. We will see you next week, right back here on the Podcast Network. Tatty bye for now.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Another week of games gone. Another week of games to come. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. If you can spare a little more time, maybe like, share, subscribe and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That is it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to Cookie Cast.